The massive alien ships descended upon humanity's outer colonies like a plague of cold, unfeeling metal. Captain J. Park watched the holographic displays, his dark eyes reflecting the cascading red warnings that signaled humanity's impending doom. The collective's invasion was methodical, precise, and ruthlessly efficient. Their battleships, each the size of small cities, moved through space with a mechanical precision that suggested more than just technological superiority. They represented a complete absence of emotion, of mercy. Europa Colony, humanity's furthest outpost, was the first to fall. Orbital defense platforms, once considered state-of-the-art, crumbled like paper against the alien weaponry. Thousands of human settlers watched in silent horror as their protective shields dissolved and alien boarding parties began their systematic elimination. Lieutenant Hana Kim's hands moved swiftly across the communication console, desperately trying to coordinate evacuation efforts. But she knew the truth. There would be no escape. The aliens had planned this invasion with a calculation that left no room for human survival. All units, prepare for Emergency Protocol Delta, Jay announced, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. Around him, younger crew members tried to hide their terror, their hands shaking as they operated complex machinery designed to defend against an enemy they barely understood. The aliens communicated through encrypted signals that seemed to pulse, with cold mathematical precision. Each transmission was a brutal reminder: humanity was obsolete. Their civilization was nothing more than a minor inconvenience in the grand design of galactic conquest. Aboard the UES Resilience, the last remaining command ship in the sector, Jay understood something the aliens did not. Humans were not just numbers to be calculated or obstacles to be eliminated. They were survivors, they were adaptable, and they never truly surrendered. Military reports streamed in from different sectors. Mars colony had gone dark within hours. The lunar research stations were completely destroyed. Earth's orbital defenses were being systematically dismantled with a surgical precision that suggested the aliens had studied human technology for decades. "Sir?" Hana interrupted, her voice breaking the tense silence. "We're detecting multiple breach points in our defensive perimeter." Jay nodded, understanding what that meant. The outer layers of human defense were collapsing. Each moment brought the alien fleet closer to Earth, closer to humanity's final stronghold. But something burned within the human crews, a determination that no technological superiority could crush, a spirit that refused to acknowledge defeat, even when all mathematical projections suggested total annihilation was inevitable. The ship's artificial intelligence began calculating survival probabilities. Each simulation showed less than a 3% chance of human resistance succeeding. But AI cannot measure human spirit. It cannot quantify hope. Explosions rocked the Resilience's hull. Automated repair systems kicked into action, sealing breaches and redirecting power. Crew members moved with a precision born of years of training, transforming potential panic into focused action. Jay looked at his crew. Young faces, determined eyes, people who knew they might not survive the next hour, but were prepared to fight anyway. Some were crying silently. Others were setting their jaws with a resolve that seemed to defy the very laws of probability. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, space transformed into a battlefield. Human ships, small, comparatively primitive, darted between massive alien vessels like angry hornets attacking a bear. Each movement was a calculated risk, each engagement a potential suicide mission. The first wave of the invasion was not just a military operation. It was a statement. The collective was sending a message. Resistance was futile. Surrender was the only logical choice. They did not understand humans. They could not comprehend that for humanity, surrender was never an option. Klaxon warnings blared and emergency systems engaged. Captain J. Park made a silent promise. They might destroy our ships. They might eliminate our colonies. But they will never break our spirit. The abandoned mining tunnels of Europa Base echoed with whispers of survival. Dai Quan moved silently between scattered groups of human survivors, his eyes reflecting a determination that burned brighter than fear. Outside these tunnels, the alien collective believed humanity was finished. Inside, a different story was taking shape. Survivors came from everywhere: military personnel, scientists, engineers, and ordinary people who had escaped the initial invasion. They were bruised, hungry, but not broken. Their technology was scavenged, their equipment damaged, but their minds remained sharp and their spirits undefeated. "We're not just hiding," Day told a group of young technicians huddled around a makeshift communication center. "We're planning." Broken mining lasers became potential weapons. Discarded communication equipment transformed into signal interceptors. Old oxygen recycling systems were modified to create electromagnetic pulse generators that could potentially disable alien technology. A young engineer named Ri-Su discovered something extraordinary. The alien communication systems, despite their advanced technology, had a fundamental weakness. They operated on predictable patterns, assuming all resistance would follow logical protocols. Humans, by nature, were anything but predictable. Small groups began planning micro-resistance operations. A supply line disrupted here. A communication network compromised there. Each action was carefully calculated to cause maximum confusion with minimal risk. The aliens had overwhelming technological superiority. They had massive battleships that could destroy entire cities with a single burst. But they did not understand the human capacity for adaptation, for turning limitations into strengths. Day's underground network developed a unique communication system. Using old mining tunnel resonance frequencies and improvised encryption, they could share information without the aliens detecting their signals. It was a network built on human creativity, not technological supremacy. Sarah, a former communication specialist, developed a method of sending encrypted messages using thermal variations in the tunnel's cooling systems. Each temperature change could represent a different piece of information. The aliens, with their rigid computational thinking, would never understand such an organic communication method. Food was scarce. Resources were limited. But human ingenuity found solutions. Hydroponic systems were set up in hidden cave chambers. Recycling became an art form. Every piece of equipment was examined, modified, repurposed. Military survivors brought tactical knowledge. Scientists brought technological understanding. Engineers brought the ability to transform the impossible into potential. And ordinary people brought something the aliens could never comprehend: hope. Day understood that this was more than a resistance. This was humanity's last stand. Each person in these tunnels represented a small spark of defiance against a seemingly unstoppable force. Intelligence gathering became their primary weapon. By understanding alien communication patterns, by intercepting their signals, they could predict movements, identify weaknesses. The aliens saw humans as a mathematical problem to be solved. Humans saw the invasion as a challenge to be overcome. Young technicians worked alongside veteran soldiers. Age didn't matter, experience didn't matter. What mattered was the collective goal of survival and eventual resistance. Their first major breakthrough came when Ri-Su discovered a way to create localized energy disruptions that could temporarily blind alien sensor systems. It wasn't much, but in a war where every second counted, it was everything. Day looked at the faces around him, tired, hungry, but alive. Each person represented a promise that humanity would not go quietly. Each person was a testament to the human spirit that refused to be extinguished. The aliens thought they had won. They believed humanity was a footnote in galactic history. They did not understand that humans were not defined by their initial defeat, but by their capacity to rise again. In the cold, dark tunnels of Europa Base, the true battle for humanity's survival was just beginning. And nobody knew this better than Daquan and his underground resistance. The collective might have conquered their cities, but they had not conquered their spirit. Not yet. The first successful human counterattack began in the most unexpected way. Seok-yoon, a quiet engineer with glasses slightly bent and hands that moved like lightning across complex computer systems, discovered a vulnerability in the alien communication network that no one else had seen. The collective's massive ships relied on a centralized communication system that assumed perfect information flow. They believed their technological superiority made them invincible. They were wrong. Siak's team worked in a hidden research facility deep beneath an abandoned lunar research station. Using salvaged quantum communication devices and reprogrammed alien transponders, they began to inject false information into the collective's communication channels. It started small. A redirected supply route here. A false positioning signal there. The aliens initially dismissed these anomalies as minor system glitches. They did not understand that each small disruption was a carefully planned attack. One night, Siak managed to send a complete fabricated battle report that suggested a massive human fleet was preparing an attack on a critical alien supply route. The collective's military commanders began redirecting significant resources to defend against a threat that didn't exist. Lieutenant Hana Kim, who had survived the initial invasion, helped coordinate these psychological warfare tactics. She understood that humans were fighting an enemy that saw the universe through cold mathematical calculations. Humans saw the universe through creativity and unpredictability. The first major success came when Siak's team managed to create a cascading communication failure in 3 alien battleship groups. Suddenly, these massive vessels lost coordination. Their perfect formation collapsed. Ships began moving in contradictory directions, creating chaos where there was once precise order. They understand technology, Siak told his team, but they don't understand human unpredictability. Military strategists within the human resistance began to see an opportunity. If they could continue disrupting alien communication networks, they could create strategic advantages that no traditional military approach could achieve. A captured alien communication device became their most valuable weapon. By understanding its internal systems, Siak's team could create targeted disruptions that looked like normal system failures. The aliens would spend hours trying to diagnose problems that didn't actually exist. Young technicians worked around the clock. Some were barely out of their teenage years. Others were veteran engineers. But they all shared one thing: a burning desire to push back against an enemy that had taken everything from them. The collective started to change its communication protocols, but each time they adapted, human engineers found new ways to penetrate their systems. It was a digital cat-and-mouse game where humanity's survival depended on continuous innovation. One particular operation involved sending false retreat signals to alien attack groups. Entire squadrons of alien ships would suddenly pull back from potential attack zones, creating gaps in their defensive lines that human resistance fighters could exploit. Siak rarely celebrated. He was always thinking ahead, always looking for the next vulnerability. His team nicknamed him the Ghost Engineer because of his ability to move through complex technological systems like a phantom. The psychological impact was perhaps more significant than the actual technological disruptions. Alien military commanders began to doubt their own communication systems. Trust broke down within their rigid hierarchical structure. What the collective didn't understand was that humans saw challenges as opportunities. Where aliens saw a problem, humans saw a puzzle to be solved. Where aliens calculated, humans innovated. Small victories began to accumulate. A disrupted supply line, a misdirected attack group, a communication network temporarily blinded. Each success was a reminder that humanity was not defeated. Siak looked at his team, tired, determined, ready to continue the fight. They were not just resistance fighters. They were humanity's last hope. The unexpected counter had begun, and the aliens would soon learn that technological superiority meant nothing against human creativity and spirit. Commander Unipark understood something fundamental about warfare that the aliens could never comprehend. Victory wasn't just about weapons, but about breaking an enemy's spirit. She sat in a hidden communication center, surrounded by screens displaying intercepted alien transmissions. Her team consisted of psychologists, communication experts, and former propaganda specialists. Their weapon wasn't a missile or a laser. It was information. The humans began broadcasting carefully crafted messages across alien communication networks. These weren't simple threats or pleas for surrender. They were strategic psychological provocations designed to create doubt and confusion. One transmission showed human survivors rebuilding a destroyed colony using nothing more than basic tools and incredible determination. Another displayed human children playing in makeshift shelters, showing absolute resilience in the face of total destruction. The aliens watched, unable to understand the human capacity for hope. Captured alien communication devices became windows into their psychological weaknesses. The collective operated on pure logical algorithms. They couldn't process emotional complexity. Humans used this fundamental difference as a weapon. Strategic broadcasts highlighted human historical moments of survival. Images of people overcoming impossible challenges during World War II, surviving natural disasters, rebuilding after complete devastation. Each transmission was a psychological punch that the aliens couldn't defend against. Technological disruptions continued alongside these psychological attacks. Small teams led by Daquan would create localized communication blackouts, then immediately flood alien networks with carefully designed psychological content. The effect was devastating. Alien military commanders began experiencing something they had never encountered: uncertainty. Their perfect computational models started showing unexpected variables. Humans were not behaving according to predicted patterns. Young technicians like Risu developed increasingly sophisticated methods of psychological manipulation. They studied alien communication patterns, understanding that each transmission could be a potential psychological weapon. Some broadcasts showed human technological innovations happening in real time. A mining laser being converted into a defensive weapon. An oxygen recycling system transformed into an electromagnetic pulse generator. The message was clear. Humans could adapt faster than the aliens could predict. The collective's initial strategy had been simple: overwhelm and eliminate. Now they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to be overwhelmed, an enemy that saw every destruction as an opportunity for innovation. Yuna's team discovered that alien military units started experiencing what human psychologists would call operational paranoia. Communication delays increased. Strategic decisions became more hesitant. The perfect machine was developing glitches. One particularly effective transmission showed human resistance fighters using captured alien technology in completely unexpected ways. A damaged alien communication device repurposed as a local power generator. A destroyed battleship component transformed into a communication interceptor. The psychological warfare wasn't just about creating fear. It was about demonstrating humanity's fundamental strength: adaptability. Alien observation units began reporting unusual phenomena. Human resistance groups weren't just surviving. They were evolving. They were turning limitations into strengths. With a speed that defied computational prediction, military strategists within the human resistance understood that this was more than a traditional war. This was a battle of imagination versus calculation, creativity versus computational efficiency. Commander Yuna Park rarely smiled, but when she saw the first signs of hesitation in alien attack patterns, a small smile crossed her face. They were breaking through. The broadcasts continued, each transmission a reminder that humanity was not a species to be easily conquered. Each message a declaration that survival was more than just a biological imperative. It was an art form. Alien military databases started showing increased error rates. Communication networks developed unexpected interruptions. Strategic planning algorithms began producing increasingly unpredictable results. Humans were not just fighting. They were rewriting the very definition of resistance, and the collective was beginning to understand that some enemies cannot be defeated by technology alone. The final battle for solar system control would be remembered throughout galactic history as the moment humanity transformed from a potential extinction event to an unprecedented force of survival. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge of the reconstructed UES Resilience, watching the massive alien mothership approach. Around him, a fleet of modified human vessels waited. These were not the clean, perfect ships from before the invasion. These were weapons crafted from desperation, innovation, and pure human determination. Every system had been pushed beyond its original design. Mining lasers became precision weapons. Communication arrays transformed into complex jamming systems. Survival equipment became advanced defense mechanisms. Humanity had turned its entire technological infrastructure into a weapon. The alien collective didn't understand what was happening. Their computational models showed complete human defeat. Their strategic algorithms predicted total submission. But algorithms cannot measure human spirit. Daquan's resistance fighters had spent months infiltrating alien communication networks. Seok Yoon's technological innovations had created vulnerabilities in their most advanced systems. Unipark's psychological warfare had introduced critical uncertainties into their decision-making processes. The first wave of attack came not from massive weapons, but from complex digital disruptions. Human technicians simultaneously attacked multiple communication frequencies, creating cascading system failures across the alien fleet. Massive battleships suddenly lost coordination, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos. Risu, the young engineer who had been developing unconventional technological solutions, had created a series of quantum communication disruptors. These small devices could temporarily blind alien sensor systems, creating critical moments of vulnerability. The battle was not just about firepower, it was about adaptability. Where aliens saw a problem, humans saw an opportunity. Where computational systems predicted failure, human creativity found solutions. Alien commanders watched in growing confusion as human ships moved in patterns that defied traditional combat logic. Small vessels darted between massive battleships, using maneuvers that no standard military training would consider rational. Lieutenant Hana Kim coordinated multiple resistance groups simultaneously. Communication networks that had been built in hidden tunnels and abandoned mining stations now controlled a significant portion of the human defensive strategy. The solar system became a battlefield where technology met pure human innovation. Captured alien weaponry was rapidly modified. Damaged human systems were creatively repaired. Each moment brought another unexpected twist that the collective could not comprehend. Massive alien ships began experiencing systematic failures. Communication networks collapsed. Weapon systems became unreliable. The perfect machine was developing inexplicable errors. Captain J. Park understood that this was more than a military engagement. This was humanity's declaration to the universe that they would not be easily conquered. Each maneuver was a statement of human resilience. The final moments of the battle were a symphony of human innovation. Modified communication arrays, repurposed mining equipment, quantum disruption technologies, psychological warfare tactics. Everything humanity had learned during months of resistance was now being deployed. When the last alien mothership was finally destroyed, an extraordinary silence filled the communication channels. Debris from alien vessels drifted across the solar system, monuments to humanity's unexpected victory. Survivors across human colonies watched in disbelief. The enemy that had seemed invincible had been defeated, not through superior technology, but through human creativity, determination, and an unbreakable spirit. The collective had come expecting a simple conquest. They left having learned a fundamental lesson about humanity. We are not defined by our initial defeat, but by our capacity to rise, adapt, and overcome. As communication systems across human territories began celebrating, one message became clear. Humanity was no longer just a species struggling to survive. They had become a force that the galaxy would now have to reckon with. The final stand was not just a victory, it was a transformation.